Hey entrepreneurs, my name is Asanda Ntile. I am a business coach and a business mentor, and I help my clients build and sustain thriving businesses. Welcome to our series on financial planning for entrepreneurs, where we talk about one of my favorite topics and definitely something that I believe should be a key consideration for every single entrepreneur. And that is how risk management can support the growth and sustainability of your business. So, as we continue our conversation around business risk, I want to start by giving you a fun fact today, and that is the fact that business risk is not static. It changes as your business grows, as you potentially shift into new industries, as you expand into new markets, or even as you develop new technologies and adopt new systems and processes. If you've been in business for a while now, I think you'll find this video particularly beneficial because we're going to look at how business risk evolves over time and what it is that you can do to stay one step ahead. I'm going to be unpacking this evolution of business risk by looking at different business maturity phases, four in particular. The first one I loosely term the startup phase. The second one is the growth phase. The third one is the expansion phase. And the last one I like to term the maturity phase. In each of these phases, I'm going to look at some typical risks that a business can experience. And what I want you to keep in mind is that these will be generic examples, and what your business is actually going to experience will be unique to your particular environment. So the first phase, as I mentioned, I like to call this the startup phase, not necessarily because you are a startup business, which is actually a tech-specific term, but really because you are starting out on the entrepreneurial journey with that particular enterprise. So this speaks to the early stages of your business, where I believe the biggest concern is survival. In this phase, you're likely bootstrapping. And if you're a solo entrepreneur, you're wearing all the hats. So you're the admin person, you are the marketing person, you are the compliance person, etc. So effectively, one small mistake or an unexpected cost can literally sink everything. In this phase, your risk exposure typically includes things like inconsistent cash flow, where you can have perhaps 2 good months that are followed by 4 not so great ones. You could experience lack of customers, which may be potentially a symptom of you not having properly segmented your market. You could experience operational efficiencies, for example, that lead you to prioritize things that make the least money but also give you the biggest headache. Another common one, as I mentioned, is lack of capacity, where there's lots to do but simply not enough hours in your day. So your risk management strategy here would be focused on stabilizing operations so that you can secure some sanity and potentially even get capital injection from a bank or investors or anybody who would want to fund you because they believe in your dream. And this could be achieved through effective implementation of a solid business plan, for example. When you have a steady handle on your revenue, you are gaining traction in your chosen market. And at this point, your business is likely to be shifting from the first phase, which is the startup phase, into the second phase, which I'm going to term the growth phase. In this phase, you might be hiring or looking to hire an employee or two. You might be looking to invest in some tools. You might be buying a system that supports your processes, or even potentially looking at getting office space for you and your team as the business is is growing so that you can properly manage the growth that you're experiencing. At this point, business risk could be centered around how do you scale safely, for instance. I want to pause here for a second so that I can explain the difference between growing your business and scaling your business. Growth means that your business is expanding. There's an increase in either revenue or the number of customers that you're serving, or you could be seeing an increase in output, if you're in the production or manufacturing space, or it could be a combination of these. Typically, expansion means that you need to increase the resources that you have deployed. So if you are serving more customers, it's because you now have more salespeople, or if you are producing more goods, it could be because your team is working more shift hours, and therefore your salary bill is now also starting to increase. Scaling, on the other hand, means increasing either output or revenue whilst you are deploying the same amount of resources, or actually fewer. And resources here is referring to people, time, costs, etc. So scaling your business means you're improving profit margins. So scaling is important not just for growth, but also for profitability. As you move to new markets, so that could be your business either opening up a new branch, for example, or maybe you're launching a new product or a new service, you are now going to be shifting from the second phase, which is the growth phase, into the expansion phase, which is now our third phase. And this comes with what I like to term external risk. And I think it might be useful to just take a moment to explain internal risk versus external risk, just so that you can get a sense of what the difference is. Internal risk originates within your business, and examples include issues with human resources, things like outdated technology, operational efficiencies, etc. And you're likely to experience these in that first phase, which we called the startup phase. But you can also experience this in the growth phase as you are introducing systems, people, processes into the business. External risk stems from factors that are outside your business, and these could include things like the occurrence of a natural disaster, either a drought, a drought or a flood, by way of example. It could be things like an economic recession that would impact the buying power of your customers, or even a change in the regulatory environment that would, let's say, increase your compliance burden. Particularly if, for example, we mentioned if you were to open up new branches, if you were doing this in different jurisdictions, then you effectively have to comply with the laws and regulations in each of those jurisdictions. So, the regulatory environment is then not something that you can control, but is also then increasing the costs within your internal environment. So in the expansion phase, you need to be thinking more strategically about business risk. And your risk management or risk mitigation strategy could include exercises like getting the right legal or tax advice, or professional advice, as it were, whatever is relevant to your particular context. It could be carefully selecting the geographical locations that you are going to be operating in or expanding into, whatever your particular circumstances may demand. The last phase that I want to mention is the maturity phase. Now, at this point, whatever you're doing as a business is working, you've established a brand, and effectively your focus is shifting from survival, and you're now thinking about preservation and sustainability. Typically, business risk in this phase is going to include things like organizational culture, employee retention, reputation management, or even the transition of leadership, right? And so succession planning and leadership development would be key to your mitigation strategy in this phase. So overall, you can pick up two things across all these different phases. The first one is that different business cycles or phases come with different risks. And the second thing, which I think is probably more important, or at least I want to place more emphasis on, is that risk does not go away just because the business is growing or the business is successful at any given moment. The thing to remember is that as exciting as it is to be in business, it is not without risks, regardless of how well the business is doing. Understanding how a risk evolves is going to be key in supporting you to stay competitive and remaining resilient across those different phases. Whether you are starting up, expanding, or even scaling your business, in these traditional terms, proactive risk management is what is going to help you stay ahead of challenges and protect your business as it is growing. So now that you have some sense of the different phases and potentially have even started thinking about what are the different risks that are relevant to you, depending on the phase that you're in, what should you do about this? Well, if nothing else, I want you to accept that business risk is a reality that you cannot run from. So as you prepare to grow your business, you should also prepare to manage the risk that comes with that growth. With that acceptance must come action. So be proactive about risk management. As your business grows, the risk exposure is going to change, and there may be things in the environment that are bubbling under the surface which could have a significant impact on your risk landscape. Now, these things could be in your internal environment, they could also be in your external environment, as it were. So practically, what should you be doing to stay on top of things? Well, very simple answer: annual risk audit. You should be conducting a risk audit every single year, and that is something that's going to help you to examine your ability to identify, analyze, and manage the various risks that your business is exposed to. In the process, you should be able to identify gaps and weaknesses in your current processes and practices. And this identification is then going to help you so that you can plan for targeted improvements and activities going forward. Your risk audit will be as simple or as complex as your business environment requires. And if you are unsure of what you should be doing, where you should start, or if you need to know whether your current practices are adequate, then please seek the necessary advice. You are most welcome to get in touch with me, and I will gladly point you in the right direction. I want to leave it here for this video. But to get you started on your risk auditing journey, I've included a risk audit template that you can download, and you're going to find the link down below. Until the next video, keep building those businesses and keep thriving.